Rex performed his duties with exceptional bravery. He is a true hero.
Good boy, Rex.
The gavel hung in
So
midair. Shadow's head dropped lower. 7 years of service, 5 surgeries, 1 bullet that should have killed a cop, but killed his career instead. Going once. Nobody moved. Going twice. The German shepherd's legs trembled. His eyes found the exit. Maybe freedom looked like that. Dark, empty, alone. Then a hand rose from the back row. Slow,
Going twice.
steady,
Sold.
certain. The room went silent. Nobody knew who he was. Nobody knew why he'd bid on a broken dog. But what happened next would shake this entire town to its core. Before we go further, drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far Shadow's story travels. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Shadow stood on the platform, his right hind leg
Almost
barely
done here,
holding
Rex.
weight.
You're such a good
3 years
boy.
ago, that leg
This
had
red
pushed him
rat
through
holds
a
everything in
warehouse
place.
door ahead of his partner. 2 seconds
Rex
later,
performed his
the
duties
bullet
with
meant for Officer
exceptional
Daniel
bravery.
Hayes
He
had
is a
torn through
true
muscle and
hero.
bone instead.
Good boy, Rex.
The department
You did
called him
so
a
well.
hero. Tonight they called him Lot 47. Ladies and gentlemen, the auctioneer adjusted his glasses. Next up we have a retired canine unit, German Shepherd, male, 7 years old. A woman in the 3rd row whispered to her husband, "Look at that limp." "Shh," he muttered back. But Shadow heard it. His ears flicked back. He'd heard everything for 3 months now. Every whisper, every sigh, every conversation that stopped when he limped into the room. The auctioneer cleared his throat. This dog has an exemplary service record, explosive detection, crowd control, fugitive apprehension. What happened to his leg? Someone called out. The auctioneer's smile tightened. Injured in the line of duty. How bad? He's fully functional for companion purposes. Laughter rippled through the auction hall. Not loud, just enough to sting. Shadow's tail stayed down. He'd learned not to wag it anymore. People didn't like seeing hope in things they'd already written off. Let's start the bidding at $100. Silence. The auctioneer scanned the crowd. 43 people had shown up tonight. Farmers looking for herding dogs. Families wanting protection. Rich folks shopping for status symbols. Nobody wanted the cripple. Come on, folks. This is a trained police dog. You know how much training goes into these animals. A man in a flannel shirt spoke up. Yeah, but what's he good for now? Companionship, loyalty. He's got years left in him. Can he run? The auctioneer hesitated. He gets around just fine. That's a no. More laughter. Quieter this time. The kind that didn't need volume to cut deep. Shadow shifted his weight. The movement sent a spike of pain up his leg, but he didn't whine. He'd stopped doing that too. Whining made people uncomfortable, made them look away faster. $80? The auctioneer tried. Surely someone sees the value here. The value. Shadow remembered when his value was measured differently. When Daniel would crouch down after a shift scratch behind his ears and say, "Good boy, Shadow. Best partner I ever had." Where was Daniel now? Shadow's eyes drifted toward the crowd searching. He'd searched every room for 3 months, every hallway at the shelter, every car that pulled up, every footstep that passed his kennel. Daniel never came. $70. A young couple near the front exchanged glances. The woman leaned toward her boyfriend. "He's kind of sweet." "Babe, we talked about this. We want a puppy." "I know, but..." "A puppy we can train ourselves, not some broken-down police dog." The boyfriend's voice carried farther than he meant it to. Shadow's ears pinned back completely now, broken down. The words settled into his chest like stones. $60. The auctioneer's voice had lost its enthusiasm. "Come on, people. This dog took a bullet for his handler." "Then where's his handler?" someone called out. Good question. The answer was sitting in the back row, hat pulled low, face hidden in shadow. Daniel Hayes hadn't planned on coming. He'd sworn he wouldn't. Promised himself that seeing Shadow again would only make things worse. But when his buddy at the department mentioned the auction, mentioned Lot 47, mentioned that nobody had even submitted a pre-bid. Daniel's truck had driven itself here. Now he sat frozen, watching his old partner stand under those harsh lights, watching the crowd reject him the same way the department had. The same way Daniel had. $50. The auctioneer was nearly begging now. That's less than a vet visit, folks. Silence pressed down like a physical weight. Shadow's breathing quickened. He recognized this feeling. The warehouse had felt like this right before the shooting. The air thick, dangerous, wrong. His instincts screamed at him to move, to act, to protect, but protect who, from what? From this $40. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. He wanted to stand up. Wanted to shout that this was wrong, that Shadow deserved better, that heroes don't belong in auction houses being sold off like used equipment. But his throat wouldn't work. Because he'd signed the papers. 3 months ago, when the captain said, "Hayes, you know the policy. Injured canines can't remain with active handlers. Liability issues." Daniel had nodded, had shaken hands, had walked away while Shadow barked himself hoarse in the kennel. "I'll come back for you," Daniel had whispered through the chain-link fence that last night. "I swear, buddy, I'll figure something out." But he hadn't. And now Shadow stood on that platform, and Daniel sat in the back row like a coward. The auctioneer set down his gavel. "All right, last call. $30 for a fully trained German Shepherd. $30. The room had gone quiet in a different way now. Not anticipation. Resignation. Shadow lowered himself slowly to the platform, the movement careful, controlled. His leg couldn't support standing anymore. Not without rest. A woman in the front row touched her husband's arm. "Oh, honey, look." "Don't," he said firmly. "We're not set up for a dog with special needs." "But nobody wants him." "That's not our problem." Shadow lay with his head on his paws, eyes open, staring at nothing. This was it. The end of the line. He didn't understand auctions or adoption or any of the human rules that had brought him here. He just knew he'd failed somehow. Good dogs got to go home, got to stay with their partners, got to keep working. Shadow was here. The auctioneer picked up his clipboard. "All right, folks, we're going to move on." The back door opened. Every head turned at the sound except Shadow's. He'd stopped caring who came and went. But then a scent hit him. Gun oil, pine soap, something else. Something that smelled like sand desert. Old canvas and older pain. Shadow's head lifted. A man stood in the doorway. Late 40s, maybe 50. Wore a faded military jacket despite the warm evening. A baseball cap covered most of his face. He moved with a slight hitch in his step, not quite a limp, but close. He didn't look at the auctioneer. Didn't acknowledge the crowd. His eyes went straight to the German Shepherd on the platform. Shadow's entire body went rigid. The man walked slowly down the aisle, his footsteps measured, deliberate. He took a seat in the last row, 3 chairs away from where Daniel sat hidden. The auctioneer adjusted his microphone. "As I was saying, we'll move on to Lot 48. How much for the Shepherd?" The voice came from the man in the military jacket. Rough. Quiet. Like gravel rolling in a river. The auctioneer blinked. "I'm sorry." "The dog. How much?" Oh well, the bidding stalled at $30. "I'll give you 50. The room stirred. Whispers cascaded like dominoes. "Sir, are you sure this dog has some significant limitations?" "I said 50. The auctioneer looked around the room, perhaps hoping someone would counterbid, would save him from selling a police dog to a complete stranger for less than the cost of dinner. Nobody moved. "All right then, $50. Going once." Daniel's hand twitched toward his wallet. This was his chance. He could bid, could take Shadow home where he belonged. But the words stuck in his throat. What would he tell his wife? His kids? The department. Sorry, I know we can barely afford groceries, but I bought back my old partner for emotional reasons. He'd lose his job, might lose his family. But Shadow, going twice. The German Shepherd had risen to 3 legs, staring at the stranger with an intensity Daniel had only seen a few times before. Once when Shadow had cornered an armed suspect. Once when he'd detected an explosive device under a school bus. And once, right before he'd taken that bullet. Shadow wasn't looking at the stranger with suspicion. He was looking at him with recognition. Sold. The gavel cracked against wood. Lot 47 to the gentleman in the back. The stranger stood slowly reaching for his wallet. Daniel watched paralyzed as the man counted out bills. Watched as the attendant brought Shadow's leash. Watched as the German Shepherd, his partner, his friend, his brother, limped down from the platform toward a complete stranger. Shadow should have been resistant, should have balked. In his 7 years on the force, he'd never responded well to anyone except Daniel and a handful of trusted trainers. But when the stranger crouched down holding out one weathered hand, Shadow pressed his nose into the palm without hesitation. The man's voice carried in the quiet room. "It's all right, soldier. You're safe now." Soldier, not dog, not K9 unit, not Lot 47. Soldier. Shadow's tail moved, just once, the first time in 3 months. Daniel felt something break inside his chest. The stranger straightened leash in hand. He glanced once around the room, his gaze passing over Daniel without stopping, then turned toward the exit. Shadow followed his limp pronounced, but his head high. As they reached the door, the stranger paused. He didn't turn around, just spoke loud enough for the room to hear. "Y'all should be ashamed of yourselves." Then they were gone. The auction hall erupted in whispers. Who was that? Never seen him before. Probably just some bleeding heart. $50 for a crippled dog, more money than sense. Daniel sat frozen as the auctioneer moved on to Lot 48. Around him, people laughed and bid and argued over dogs that could run, could work, could earn their keep. Nobody noticed the man in the back row with tears running down his face. Nobody except a woman sitting 2 rows ahead. She'd been quiet all evening, her gray hair pulled into a neat bun, her hands folded in her lap. She'd watched the whole scene with Shadow, watched the cruel laughter, watched the stranger's intervention, and she'd watched Daniel Hayes. She knew who he was. Everyone at the auction knew. The cop who'd lost his K9 partner, the handler who'd walked away. Now she turned in her seat, her eyes finding Daniel's. "You should have bid," she said softly. Daniel wiped his face quickly. "I couldn't." "You should have bid." She turned back around, leaving him alone with his guilt. The auction continued. Dogs came and went. Prices rose and fell. Life moved on. But Daniel stayed in his seat long after most people had left. Stayed until the auctioneer packed up his clipboard and the attendants shut off the lights. Finally he stood, walked slowly toward the exit, pushed through the doors into the cool night air. His truck sat alone in the gravel parking lot. He climbed in, started the engine, then just sat there with his hands on the wheel. Shadow was gone. Some stranger had taken him. Some guy Daniel didn't know, didn't trust, didn't. His radio crackled to life. "All units be advised. Silent alarm at 2847 Oakwood Drive. Possible 1031 burglary in progress." Daniel reached for the radio, then stopped. 2847 Oakwood Drive. That was 6 miles outside town. Rural area. Forest Service roads. The kind of place where someone might have a cabin. The kind of place where a man who wanted to be left alone might live. The kind of place where a stranger in a military jacket might take a dog nobody else wanted. Daniel put the truck in gear. He told himself he was just checking. Just making sure. Just doing his due diligence as an officer of the law. But he knew the truth. He was following Shadow. He wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The truck's headlights cut through the darkness as Daniel pulled out of the parking lot. Behind him, the auction house went dark. Ahead of him, somewhere in the night, His old partner was starting a new life. With someone else. The thought burned like acid. Daniel drove faster. His hands tight on the wheel, his jaw set. He'd find that cabin, find that stranger, find out who the hell thought they could just walk into an auction and walk out with. His phone rang. His wife. Daniel let it go to voicemail. He had something more important to do. Something he should have done 3 months ago. The road stretched out ahead, dark and winding. In the distance, thunder rumbled. A storm was coming. Daniel pressed the accelerator. He was done being a coward. Shadow was out there somewhere. And Daniel was going to make this right. Even if it killed him. The truck's engine hummed through the darkness. Daniel's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. He shouldn't be doing this. He knew he shouldn't. But his foot stayed heavy on the gas. The address from the auction paperwork sat crumpled on his passenger seat. Michael Hale. No phone number. Just a rural route address that led deep into the pine woods outside town. Daniel had checked the name in the system during his dinner break. Clean record. Military discharge honorable. Purple Heart recipient. Nothing else. A ghost. The kind of man who lived alone for a reason. Daniel's radio crackled again. Unit 12, what's your 20? He reached over and switched it off. His wife had called 3 more times. He'd ignored every one. Sarah would understand. Eventually. She had to. Shadow wasn't just a dog. The road narrowed to gravel, then dirt. Trees pressed in on both sides, their branches scraping the truck's roof. Daniel's headlights caught a mailbox, rusted, tilted, the numbers barely visible. 2847. He slowed. Turned. His tires crunched over a long driveway thick with weeds. Then he saw it. A cabin. Small. Dark. One light burning in the window. And on the porch, lying on a blanket, was Shadow. Daniel's breath caught. The German shepherd's head lifted at the sound of the truck. His ears perked forward. His body went rigid. Even from this distance, Daniel could see the recognition. Shadow stood all 3 good legs and 1 bad and took 2 steps toward the driveway. Daniel killed the engine. Sat in the sudden silence. What the hell was he doing? The cabin door opened. The stranger. Michael stepped out onto the porch. He wore the same jacket, but the cap was gone. His face was lean, weathered, with eyes that had seen too much. He looked at Daniel's truck, looked at Shadow, then back at the truck. He didn't seem surprised. Daniel opened his door and climbed out slowly, hands visible. Evening. Michael didn't answer right away, just stood there, one hand resting on the porch railing. Shadow whined, low, uncertain. You followed us, Michael said finally. I'm Officer Hayes. I just wanted to make sure. I know who you are. That stopped Daniel cold. Michael descended the porch steps. His limp was more pronounced now, away from the crowd, away from the need to hide it. Recognized you at the auction. Shadow's old handler, the one who left him. The words hit like a fist. I didn't have a choice. Everyone's got a choice. The department has rules. Screw the rules. Michael's voice stayed level, but his eyes burned. That dog took a bullet for you, and you sold him off like a used car. Daniel's jaw clenched. I didn't sell him. The department... You signed the papers, didn't you? Silence. Shadow moved between them, his head swiveling back and forth. His tail was down, his body tense. He could smell the conflict, could feel it building like pressure before a storm. What do you want? Michael asked. Good question. Daniel had driven all the way out here, had ignored his radio, his phone, his wife, had tracked down a complete stranger in the middle of the night. What did he want? I want to know he's safe, Daniel said finally. He's safe. I want to know you can handle him. Shadow's not just any dog, he's got needs. I know what he needs. How you just met him. Michael's expression didn't change. I know what wounded soldiers need. 2 legs or 4. The words hung in the air. Daniel looked at Michael's limp, at the Purple Heart tattoo barely visible beneath his jacket sleeve, at the way he stood, weight shifted, always ready, never quite at rest. "You served," Daniel said. "Afghanistan, Helmand Province, combat medic, worked with K9 units. Then you know these dogs bond with one handler. You can't just what? Care about him, give him a home." Michael's voice hardened. "Where were you 3 months ago when he needed you? I was trying to keep my job, trying to support my family. And he was trying to figure out why his partner abandoned him." Shadow barked. Sharp. Loud. Both men stopped. The German shepherd stood between them, his body rigid, his eyes moving from one to the other. His bark came again, different this time. Not aggressive. Desperate. "Easy, boy," Daniel said automatically. Shadow's ears flicked toward him, then toward Michael. He whined again, the sound breaking something in Daniel's chest. "He's confused," Michael said quietly. "Doesn't know who he belongs to now." "He belongs with me." "Then where have you been?" Daniel had no answer for that. Michael moved past him toward the truck. For a moment, Daniel thought he was going to tell him to leave, but instead, Michael leaned against the hood, his shoulders sagging slightly. "I had a dog once," Michael said. "In Afghanistan. His name was Hunter. Belgian Malinois. Best damn explosive detector in the unit." Daniel waited. "We were on patrol outside Kandahar. Routine supply run. Hunter signaled on a culvert, saved the whole convoy from an IED." Michael's voice went flat, but there was a secondary device, hidden. When it went off, he stopped, swallowed. "Hunter didn't make it, and I couldn't save him. Held him in my arms while he died." Shadow had moved closer, pressing against Michael's leg. The man reached down absently, his fingers finding the spot behind the dog's ears. "When I saw Shadow at that auction," Michael continued, "saw everyone turning their backs on him. I saw Hunter. Saw all the chances I didn't get to make things right." Daniel felt his anger draining away, leaving only the guilt beneath. "I didn't want to leave him," Daniel said quietly. "But my captain said." "Your captain's an idiot." Despite everything, Daniel almost smiled. Yeah, he is." They stood in silence. Shadow sat between them, his head turning from one to the other like he was trying to understand. Finally, Michael spoke. "You want him back." Daniel's heart jumped. "What?" "I paid $50. Give me 100 and he's yours." It should have been everything Daniel wanted. Shadow, home, back where he belonged. But when he looked at the German shepherd, he saw the way Shadow leaned against Michael's leg, saw the calm in his body that hadn't been there at the auction, saw something that looked almost like peace. "He's already settling in," Daniel said slowly. "It's been 3 hours. 3 hours more than I've given him in 3 months. Michael's expression softened slightly. Daniel crouched down. "Shadow, come here, boy." The German shepherd's ears perked. He took one step forward, then stopped, glancing back at Michael. "It's okay," Michael said. Shadow limped over to Daniel, his tail giving a hesitant wag. When Daniel's hand touched his fur, the dog pressed close, whining softly. "I'm sorry," Daniel whispered. "I'm so sorry, buddy." Shadow licked his face once, then twice. It should have felt like forgiveness, but it felt like goodbye. Daniel stood, wiping his eyes quickly. "Take care of him. You're leaving. He's better off here, with you, away from—" Daniel gestured vaguely. "Everything that hurt him. Including you." "Yeah, including me." Daniel turned toward his truck, got one hand on the door handle. "Hayes." He looked back. Michael had his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "He's not better off. He's just safer. There's a difference." "What's that mean?" "Means he needs time, needs space, needs to figure out how to be a dog again instead of a weapon." Michael paused. But eventually, he's gonna need to know his partner didn't really abandon him. I did abandon him. Then unabandon him. Come back. Visit. Show him you still give a damn. Daniel's throat tightened. Your address isn't exactly convenient. Neither is guilt. The truth of it settled like a weight. Daniel nodded slowly. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Not tonight, though. Give him a few days. Why not tonight? Michael's expression darkened. Because right now he can barely stand. Auctioneer didn't mention that, did he? Shadow's been on his feet for 6 hours straight. His leg's swollen, probably infected. I need to get him to a vet first thing tomorrow. Panic spiked through Daniel. He's hurt. He's always hurt. That's what happens when you take a bullet and don't get proper follow-up care. The department said. The department lied. Michael's voice turned cold. They did the bare minimum to keep him alive and dumped him the second he stopped being useful. Daniel felt sick. I didn't know. You didn't ask. The words stung because they were true. Shadow had limped back to the porch, settling slowly onto the blanket. His breathing was labored, his eyes half closed. How had Daniel not noticed? Because he'd been too busy feeling sorry for himself. Too busy wallowing in his own guilt to see that his partner was suffering. What do you need? Daniel asked. Money, medication, I need you to leave him alone for 72 hours while I get him stable. But 72 hours, Hayes. Then you can visit all you want. Michael's expression softened slightly. He's gonna be okay. I promise. Daniel wanted to argue, wanted to insist on staying, but something in Michael's eyes stopped him. This man knew what he was doing. And Daniel had already proven he didn't. Okay, he said finally. 72 hours. Call first. You don't have a phone. Michael pulled a cell phone from his pocket, old, cheap, but functional. He rattled off a number. Daniel saved it. That's it? Daniel asked. You're just gonna give me your number. Why wouldn't I? I'm a cop. You're a guy who lives alone in the woods with no record, no history, no... I've got nothing to hide. Michael's voice was steady. And Shadow deserves to know his partner's still out there, even if that partner's an idiot. Despite everything, Daniel laughed. Fair. He climbed into his truck, started the engine, but before he pulled away, he rolled down the window. Hey, Hale. Michael looked over. Thank you, Daniel said, for what you did tonight, at the auction. Most people would have just walked away. Most people aren't worth knowing. Daniel drove away slowly, watching in his rearview mirror as Michael returned to the porch. As Shadow lifted his head-tail, wagging weakly. As the man sat down beside the dog and stroked his fur with the kind of patience Daniel had lost somewhere along the way. The dirt road stretched out ahead. Dark, winding, taking him back toward town. Back toward his wife and kids, and job, and all the normal things that suddenly felt very far away. His phone rang. Sarah again. This time he answered. Where are you? Her voice was tight with worry and anger. I'm on my way home. You've been gone for 3 hours. You said you'd be back after the auction. I know. I'm sorry. I needed to make sure he was okay. Silence on the other end. The dog? Sarah asked finally. Yeah. Daniel. I know what you're gonna say. Do you? Because I was gonna say I'm glad you went? That stopped him. What? Sarah sighed. You've been carrying this guilt for months. Ever since you signed those papers. I've watched it eat you alive. Her voice softened. Is he okay, Shadow? Yeah, he's with someone good. Someone who knows how to help him. Then maybe you can start letting go. But Daniel wasn't sure he could. Wasn't sure he wanted to. He drove the rest of the way in silence, his mind replaying the scene on that porch. Shadow. Michael. The way they'd sat together like they'd known each other for years instead of hours. Maybe that's what healing looked like. Maybe that's what Daniel had lost the ability to recognize. He pulled into his driveway just after midnight. The house was dark except for the kitchen light. Sarah met him at the door, her expression a mixture of relief and frustration. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I don't know." She pulled him into a hug. He held on tight. "Tell me about him," she said. "The man who took Shadow." So Daniel did. Told her about Michael. About Afghanistan. About Hunter. About the way Shadow had pressed against the man's leg like he'd found something he'd been searching for. "He sounds like exactly the right person," Sarah said. "Yeah, he does." "So why do you look so miserable?" Because Shadow had been Daniel's, his partner, his friend, his responsibility, and he'd failed him. "I should have fought harder," Daniel said. "Should have told the captain to shove his policy. Should have—" "You did what you thought was right at the time." "I was wrong." "Then make it right now." Sarah pulled back, looking him in the eyes. "Go back. Visit. Be in that dog's life. Show him you didn't really leave. Michael said to wait 3 days. Then wait 3 days. But after that, don't wait anymore." Daniel nodded. "Okay." And Daniel. "Yeah. Maybe this isn't about Shadow at all. Maybe it's about you figuring out who you want to be. The kind of cop who follows rules, or the kind who fights for what's right." She kissed his cheek and headed upstairs, leaving him alone with that question. Daniel stood in the kitchen staring at his phone, at Michael's number saved in his contacts. 72 hours. He could wait that long, had to wait that long, but then he was going back. And this time he wasn't walking away. Shadow deserved better. And maybe if he worked hard enough, Daniel could become the partner his dog had always believed he was. The kind who didn't give up, the kind who came back, the kind who fought, even when the rules said otherwise. Miles away in a cabin surrounded by darkness, Michael sat on the porch with a bottle of whiskey he wasn't drinking and a dog who'd finally fallen into real sleep. Shadow's breathing had evened out. His leg had stopped trembling. For the first time since the auction, he looked almost peaceful. Michael stroked his fur, slowly, carefully avoiding the swollen joint. "You picked a hell of a handler, buddy," he murmured. "Guy's a mess, but he's your mess." Shadow's paw twitched in sleep, chasing something in his dreams. Michael hoped it was something good, something better than warehouses and bullets and auction halls where nobody wanted you. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain. A storm was coming. Big one from the feel of it. Michael stood slowly, favoring his bad knee. "Come on, soldier. Let's get you inside." He tried to wake Shadow gently, but the dog was dead weight, exhausted, depleted, running on nothing for too long. So Michael did what he'd done 100 times in Afghanistan. He bent down, ignoring the protest in his back, and lifted the German Shepherd into his arms. Shadow woke briefly, startled, then relaxed when he realized where he was. Safe. Michael carried him inside and laid him on a thick blanket by the fireplace. Shadow's eyes opened, once, found Michael's face, then drifted shut again. "Sleep, buddy. I've got watch." And he did. Sat in the old recliner with his rifle across his lap, not because he expected trouble, but because some habits never die. Outside, the storm rolled in. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Rain began to hammer against the roof. But inside by the fire, Shadow slept. And for the first time in 3 months, so did Michael. Real sleep. Deep sleep. The kind that came when you finally stopped running from what haunted you. The kind that came when you found something worth protecting again. Morning broke gray and wet. Michael woke to find Shadow already awake, watching him from the blanket. "Hey, buddy." Shadow's tail thumped once. "You hungry?" Another thump. Michael stood, his joints crackling in protest. He moved to the kitchen, small, functional, barely used, and pulled out a bag of dog food he'd bought on the way home from the auction. High quality, expensive, the kind of food Shadow should have been eating all along. He poured it into a bowl. Shadow limped over, sniffed it, then looked up at Michael like he was asking permission. "Go ahead. It's yours." Shadow ate slowly, carefully, like he wasn't sure the food would still be there if he looked away. Michael's chest tightened. "Nobody's gonna take it from you. You're home now." But even as he said it, he wondered if it was true, because home wasn't a place. It was a person. And Shadow's person had driven away last night. Michael's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. "Yeah, it's Hayes. It's been 12 hours. I said 72. I know, I couldn't sleep. Wanted to make sure he made it through the night okay." Michael looked at Shadow, who was now licking the bowl clean. "He's fine. Eating. Moving around. Legs still swollen, but I'll get him to the vet at 8. "Which vet?" "Morrison's, out on Route 9. "I know the place. They're good." "I figured." Silence on the line. "Hayes, if you're gonna call every 12 hours, this is gonna be a long 3 days. "Sorry, you're right. I'll wait." But he didn't hang up. "What?" Michael asked. "How'd you do it?" "Do what?" "Get him to trust you so fast. Shadow's never warmed up to strangers. Ever. But with you—" Michael leaned against the counter, watching the dog explore the cabin with cautious curiosity. "I didn't push. Didn't demand. Didn't try to force him to be something he's not. That's it. That's everything." Michael paused. "These dogs spend their whole lives being told what to do, told how to feel, told who to protect. Maybe Shadow just needed someone to tell him it's okay to rest." Another silence. "I never told him that," Daniel said quietly. "You didn't know how. And you do. I learned the hard way." Daniel exhaled shakily. Okay, I'll wait. But Hale, yeah. Thank you, for answering, for caring, for all of it." "Don't thank me yet, we've got a long road ahead." He hung up before Daniel could respond. Shadow had finished exploring. Now he stood by the door looking back at Michael expectantly. "You need to go out." The tail wagged. Michael opened the door. Shadow limped onto the porch, descended the steps carefully, then stopped, staring. Michael followed his gaze. Tire tracks in the mud. Fresh. From last night. Shadow's ears went back. His body tensed. He was searching for Daniel's truck, for Daniel's scent, for his partner. "He's not here, buddy," Michael said gently. "But he'll come back, I promise." Shadow looked up at him, those dark eyes full of questions Michael couldn't answer. Then the German shepherd did his business and limped back inside, the hope in his posture fading with each step. Michael's jaw tightened. 3 days. He'd promised Daniel 3 days. But watching Shadow's disappointment, he wondered if that was a mistake. Because some wounds didn't heal with time. Some wounds needed the thing that caused them to come back and make it right. And Shadow's biggest wound wasn't in his leg, it was in his heart. The vet's office smelled like antiseptic and fear. Shadow's claws scraped against the linoleum as Michael guided him through the waiting room. A woman with a chihuahua clutched her purse tighter. "Is that dog safe?" "Safer than most people," Michael said without looking at her. The receptionist, young tired, glanced up from her computer. "Name, Michael Hale. Called this morning about the shepherd." She typed something, then frowned. "Says here this dog's registered to the police department." "Not anymore." "Sir, I can't treat him without proper ownership documentation." Michael pulled out the auction receipt and slapped it on the counter. "Bought him legal. Paid in cash. He's mine now." The receptionist studied the paper, then looked at Shadow. Her expression softened. "He was on the news last year, the shooting." "Yeah. They just threw him away. That's what they do." She made a copy of the receipt and handed back the original. "Dr. Morrison will see you in 10 minutes. And sir, good for you. Taking him in." "I didn't take him in. I bought him." "There's a difference." But even as he said it, Michael knew it wasn't true. You couldn't buy loyalty. Couldn't purchase trust. Shadow had given both freely last night, and that was worth more than any price. They sat in the corner. Shadow pressed against Michael's leg, trembling slightly. Not from pain, from memory. Last time you were in a place like this, they cut you open, Michael said quietly. I get it. But this guy's gonna help, okay? Gonna make the pain stop. Shadow looked up at him, ears flat. I know you don't believe me yet, but you will. The door opened. A man in his 60s, silver hair, kind eyes. Michael, bring him on back. The exam room was small, sterile. Shadow balked at the doorway. Easy, Dr. Morrison said. Nobody's gonna hurt you, boy. But Shadow didn't believe him either. His legs locked. His breathing quickened. Michael crouched down. Hey, look at me. Shadow's eyes found his. You trust me. The dog's tail moved, just barely. Then trust me now. 5 minutes. That's all. Then we're out of here. Shadow took one step, then another. By the time they reached the exam table, his whole body was shaking. Dr. Morrison worked quickly, efficiently, checked the leg, drew blood, took x-rays. Talk to me, Michael said. The vet's expression darkened. The bullet fractured his femur. Surgery repaired it, but there was significant soft tissue damage. Without proper physical therapy. He paused. The scar tissue's restricting his range of motion. It's why he's limping. And this swelling chronic inflammation. Probably been going on for months. Can you fix it? Fix it? No. Manage it? Yes. He'll need anti-inflammatories, pain medication, daily stretching exercises, hydrotherapy if you can manage it. How much? Dr. Morrison pulled out a calculator, started adding numbers. Initial treatment medications, follow-up visits. We're looking at around 1,500, maybe 2,000. Michael didn't blink. Do it. Sir, that's a lot of money. I said do it. The vet nodded slowly. All right, I'll get him started today. But he'll need weekly checkups for the next month. And someone needs to be with him constantly for the first 72 hours after we adjust his meds. These pain medications can cause disorientation, nausea. I'll be with him. You work. Not anymore. Dr. Morrison studied him for a moment. Saw something in Michael's face that made him stop asking questions. Okay then, let me get the medications ready. You can wait here. He left. The door clicked shut. Shadow had stopped shaking. Now he just looked exhausted, his head resting on the exam table. Expensive dog, Michael said. Could have bought 3 healthy ones for what you're gonna cost me. Shadow's tail thumped weakly against the metal table. Yeah, you're worth it. Don't let it go to your head. The door opened again. But it wasn't Dr. Morrison. It was Daniel. He stood in the doorway, uniform pressed badge gleaming. His eyes went straight to Shadow. What are you doing here? Michael asked. I called. Receptionist said you'd just gone back. Daniel took a step closer. How is he? How do you think he's been in pain for 3 months while your department pretended everything was fine? Daniel flinched. They told me he was recovering well. They lied. I should have checked. Should have insisted on seeing him. Yeah, you should have. Michael moved between Daniel and the dog. I said 72 hours. I know, but I couldn't stay away. Not when he's... Daniel stopped. His voice cracked. Is it bad? Before Michael could answer, Dr. Morrison returned with a tray of syringes and pill bottles. He stopped short when he saw Daniel. Officer Hayes. Doc. Didn't expect to see you here. Neither did I, Michael muttered. Dr. Morrison set down the tray. Shadow's gonna be fine, but he needs rest, consistent care, and someone who won't push him past his limits. He was looking at Daniel when he said it. I understand, Daniel said quietly. Do you? The vet's tone hardened. Because when you brought him in for his post-op checkup, I recommended physical therapy, specialist visits, pain management protocols. You said the department would handle it. They were supposed to. They didn't, and this dog paid the price. Dr. Morrison picked up a syringe. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a patient to treat. Daniel stepped back. Can I at least say hello? Michael wanted to say no, wanted to protect Shadow from more disappointment. But the German Shepherd had already seen Daniel. His ears were up, his tail was moving. Make it quick, Michael said. Daniel approached slowly. Hey, buddy. Shadow's whole body wiggled despite the pain. He tried to stand on the exam table, his bad leg buckling. Whoa, easy. Daniel caught him. Easy boy, I'm here. I'm right here. Shadow whined, pressing his face into Daniel's chest. The sound was heartbreaking joy and pain and confusion all wrapped together. I'm sorry, Daniel whispered. I'm so sorry I left you. Michael looked away. This was private. This was theirs. Dr. Morrison cleared his throat. I need to administer these injections. Officer Hayes, if you could hold him steady. Daniel positioned himself at Shadow's head, hands gentle but firm. I got you, partner, just like old times. The vet worked quickly. Shadow barely flinched, too focused on Daniel, too relieved to care about the needles. All done, Dr. Morrison said. He handed Michael a bag of medications. Instructions are inside. Call me if anything seems off. And Mr. Hale, you're doing a good thing here. Just doing what someone should have done 3 months ago. The vet nodded and left. Daniel stayed where he was, both hands buried in Shadow's fur. I missed you so much. He missed you too, Michael said. Spent all morning looking for your truck. Daniel's eyes closed. God, I'm such an idiot. Yeah, you are. But you showed up. That counts for something. Does it? Ask him. Daniel looked down. Shadow was licking his hands, his face anything he could reach. His tail hadn't stopped wagging. I think that's a yes, Michael said. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Daniel spoke. What's the damage financially? 2,000, give or take. Let me... No. Hayes, I'm not taking your money. He was my responsibility. Was. Past tense. Michael's voice stayed even. He's mine now. I'll handle it. At least let me help with the follow-up care, the medications, the therapy. You want to help? Michael picked up the medication bag. Come by the cabin tonight, 7 o'clock. I'll show you how to do his stretching exercises. You can help me with his first dose of pain meds. Daniel blinked. You're inviting me over? I'm inviting you to take responsibility. There's a difference. I'll be there. Don't be late. And Hayes. Yeah. Don't wear the uniform. You're not a cop tonight. You're just a guy who screwed up and needs to make it right. Daniel nodded. Understood. They got Shadow off the table and headed for the exit. The German Shepherd limped between them, his head swiveling back and forth like he couldn't believe his luck. Both of them. Together. Here. In the parking lot, Daniel hesitated by his cruiser. Michael. What? Thank you. For not shutting me out. For giving me another chance. I'm not doing it for you, I'm doing it for him. Michael opened his truck door. Shadow needs to know his partner didn't really abandon him. Otherwise, he'll never heal. Not completely. And you know this because I've been exactly where he is. And I never got my second chance. Michael lifted Shadow into the truck. He shouldn't have to live with that. He drove away before Daniel could respond. The cabin felt different when they got back. Warmer somehow. Like it was becoming something more than just a place to hide. Michael carried Shadow inside and settled him on the blanket by the fireplace. The dog's eyes were already drooping from the sedative Dr. Morrison had given him. Sleep, buddy. When you wake up, you'll feel better. But even as Shadow drifted off, his paws kept twitching, chasing something in his dreams, or running from it. Michael sat in his chair and watched. The morning sun filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the floor. He thought about Daniel, About the look on the cop's face when he saw Shadow. About the guilt that lived in his eyes like a permanent resident. Michael knew that guilt. Had worn it himself for years after Hunter died. Some people thought guilt was weakness, a character flaw, something to be overcome. But Michael had learned different. Guilt meant you cared. Meant something mattered enough to haunt you. The trick was learning to carry it without letting it crush you. His phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Yeah, Mr. Hale. This is Janet Curtis from Channel 7 News. We heard you purchased the retired police dog at last night's auction. We'd love to do a story. No. Sir, this is a wonderful human interest piece. A veteran rescuing a wounded canine. I said no. But... He hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Different number. He let it go to voicemail. Then another call, and another. Michael turned the phone off and tossed it on the counter. Shadow stirred, lifting his head groggily. It's okay, Michael said. Just vultures. Go back to sleep. But the damage was done. Shadow was awake now, disoriented from the medication. He tried to stand, his legs wobbling. Whoa, easy. Michael moved quickly, steadying him. Doc said you'd be dizzy for a while. Shadow swayed, then sat down hard. He looked up at Michael with confused eyes. Yeah, I know. Feels weird, right? But the pain's less. That's what matters. The dog's tail moved uncertainly. Michael checked his watch. 4 hours until Daniel arrived. 4 hours to get Shadow stable, comfortable, ready. 4 hours to figure out what the hell he was doing. Because taking in a wounded dog was one thing. Playing mediator between that dog and his former handler was something else entirely. But as Shadow leaned against his leg, trusting despite every reason not to, Michael knew he'd made the right choice. Some things were worth fighting for. Some wounds were worth healing, even if it took everything you had. The afternoon crawled by. Shadow slept fitfully, waking every hour or so with a whimper. Each time Michael was there, talking softly, stroking his fur, reminding him he wasn't alone. At 6:30, Michael started dinner. Nothing fancy. Chicken and rice for Shadow. Canned soup for himself. But as he cooked, his hands shook slightly. He hadn't had visitors in 3 years. Hadn't wanted them. The cabin was his sanctuary. His fortress. The place where the world couldn't touch him. And now he'd invited someone in. Not just anyone. A cop. A reminder of rules and systems and all the things Michael had walked away from. But Daniel wasn't just a cop. He was Shadow's person. And right now, that mattered more than Michael's comfort. At 7 o'clock exactly, headlights swept across the cabin windows. Shadow's head shot up. His ears pricked forward. Yeah, Michael said. He's here. The German shepherd struggled to his feet, his tail wagging despite the medication. Despite the pain. Despite everything. Because Daniel had come back. The knock was soft. Hesitant. Michael opened the door. Daniel stood on the porch in jeans and a worn flannel shirt. No badge. No gun. Just a man holding a grocery bag and looking nervous as hell. I brought food, Daniel said. Wasn't sure if you'd eaten. Thought I said 7. It is 7. Michael checked his watch. 7 exactly. You military? What? No. Why? Most cops show up 15 minutes late and act like they're early. You're exactly on time. Daniel almost smiled. Trying to make a good impression. Try harder. But Michael stepped aside. Come in? Daniel entered slowly, his eyes going straight to Shadow. The dog limped over, whining softly. Hey, buddy. Daniel crouched down carefully. How you feeling? Shadow licked his face, his whole body wiggling. Better, I guess, Daniel said, looking up at Michael. The meds are working. So far. But the real test comes tonight. First full dose. Doc said it might make him sick. What do we do if he is? Keep him calm. Keep him hydrated. Make sure he doesn't choke. Michael moved to the kitchen. You ever done post-op care before? Not for a dog. It's the same as for people, just less complaining. Daniel followed him. What can I do? Start by washing your hands, then chop that chicken into small pieces. Shadow can't have large chunks with the nausea risk. They worked in silence. Michael heating rice, Daniel preparing meat, Shadow watching from his blanket, his eyes tracking their every move. It felt strangely domestic, like something out of a life Michael had never lived. You got a wife? Michael asked suddenly. Yeah, Sarah, 2 kids. They know you're here. Sarah does. Kids think I'm working late. You gonna tell them? Daniel paused, knife hovering over the cutting board. Tell them what? That you're spending your evenings with your old partner and the stranger who bought him. I don't know. Should I? Michael shrugged. Depends on whether you plan to keep showing up. I do. Then yeah, tell them, because this isn't gonna be a one-night thing. Shadow needs consistency, needs to know you're not gonna disappear again. I won't. You say that now. I mean it. Daniel set down the knife. I screwed up, badly, but I'm not gonna make that mistake twice. Michael studied him, saw something in the cop's eyes that looked like determination, or maybe desperation. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. Okay, Michael said. Then here's how this works. You come by 3 times a week, minimum. You help with his therapy, his meds, his exercise. You be the partner you should have been from the start. 3 times a week, my schedule. Make it work. I have a family. So does Shadow. And you're part of it. Michael's voice hardened. You wanted back in his life, this is what that costs. Time, effort, showing up even when it's inconvenient. Daniel swallowed hard, then nodded. Okay, 3 times a week. And you call every day, just to check in, even if it's just 30 seconds. Every day. And if you can't make a visit, you tell me 24 hours in advance. You don't just not show up. You don't make excuses. You communicate. Understood. Michael handed him a bowl of food. Give this to him. Small amounts. Watch him eat. If he inhales it, pull it away. His stomach's sensitive right now. Daniel took the bowl and moved to Shadow. The dog stood immediately, tail wagging. Slow down, Daniel said gently. It's not going anywhere. But Shadow ate like he was starving, like he'd forgotten what it felt like to have enough. Smaller bites, Michael called. Make him wait between each one. Daniel followed instructions, rationing the food carefully. Shadow whined in protest but obeyed. Good boy, Daniel whispered. Good boy. When the bowl was empty, Shadow licked it clean, then looked up hopefully. That's all for now, Michael said. Too much'll make him sick. Shadow sighed dramatically and flopped onto his blanket. Daniel laughed. He always this theatrical. Only when he doesn't get his way. Yeah, that tracks. They ate their own dinner in silence. Michael's soup, Daniel's sandwich from the grocery bag. At 8 o'clock, Michael pulled out the medications. Okay, pay attention. This is important. He walked Daniel through each pill, what it was for, how much to give, what side effects to watch for. And this one, Michael held up a large white tablet, is the pain management. It's the strongest, and the most likely to cause problems. What kind of problems? Vomiting, disorientation, in rare cases seizures. Daniel's face paled. Seizures. It's rare, but possible. That's why someone needs to be with him tonight. Watching. I can stay. Michael shook his head. You've got work tomorrow. I'll handle tonight. But you need to know how to do this in case I'm not available. Why wouldn't you be available? Good question. Michael didn't have an answer. Hadn't had anywhere to be in 3 years. But old habits die hard, and soldiers knew better than to assume they'd always be around. Just learn the process, Michael said. They crushed the pill and mixed it with a small amount of peanut butter. Shadow ate it eagerly. Then they waited. 10 minutes passed. Shadow seemed fine. 20 minutes. Still okay. At 30 minutes, Shadow stood suddenly. His legs wobbled. His head swayed. "Michael." "I see it. Get on his other side. We need to keep him from falling." They flanked the German Shepherd, hands ready. Shadow took 2 steps, then stopped. His breathing quickened. "He's gonna be sick," Michael said. And he was. Right there on the floor, heaving, trembling, miserable. Daniel's hands were on him immediately. "It's okay, buddy. You're okay." Shadow vomited again, then collapsed, his sides heaving. "Is this normal?" Daniel's voice was tight with panic. "Unfortunately, yes. First dose hits hardest." Michael grabbed a towel. "Keep talking to him. Let him know we're here." "You're okay," Daniel murmured. "You're gonna be okay. I'm right here. I'm not leaving." Shadow's eyes found his, glazed, confused, but trusting. "That's it," Daniel said. "Just breathe. Just breathe." Michael cleaned up quickly, then brought water. "Small sips. Don't let him gulp." They sat with Shadow for an hour. The dog drifted in and out, sometimes aware, sometimes gone somewhere else entirely. At 10 o'clock, Shadow finally settled. His breathing evened. His eyes cleared. "Worst of it's over," Michael said. Daniel sagged with relief. "Jesus, every dose is like this." "First 3 or 4 probably, then his body'll adjust." "And you're doing this alone?" "I've done worse." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting." Daniel looked at Shadow, then at Michael. "Let me stay, tonight, just in case. You've got work. I'll call in sick. Your wife will understand." Daniel's voice was firm. "I'm not leaving him, not tonight." Michael wanted to argue, wanted to maintain his boundaries, his solitude, his control. But Shadow was watching them both, and something in his eyes said he needed this, needed both of them. "Fine," Michael said. "Couch is lumpy, bathroom's down the hall, coffee's on at 5. 5. Shadow wakes up early, old habits." Daniel smiled faintly. "Yeah, I remember." They settled in. Michael in his chair, Daniel on the couch, Shadow on his blanket between them. The cabin fell silent except for the crackle of the fire and the dog's steady breathing. At midnight, Michael spoke into the darkness. "Why'd you really leave him?" Daniel was quiet for so long Michael thought he'd fallen asleep. Then, "Because I was afraid." "Of what?" "Of watching him die. Like he almost did that night." Daniel's voice cracked. "I saw him go down, saw the blood, thought I'd lost him, and when he survived, when they told me he'd never work again, I just couldn't. Couldn't watch him fade. Couldn't watch him turn into a shadow of what he'd been." "So you abandoned him instead?" "Yeah, I did. And I've regretted it every single day since." Michael understood that. Understood how fear made you do unforgivable things. How love could twist into cowardice when you'd already lost too much. "Hunter died in my arms," Michael said quietly. "I felt his heart stop, felt him go still, and I swore I'd never let myself care about another dog again." "What changed?" "Nothing. I still don't want to care. Still don't want to risk it." Michael looked at Shadow. "But he doesn't give you a choice, does he?" "No, he really doesn't." They sat in the darkness, 2 broken men keeping watch over a broken dog. And somehow in that cabin, surrounded by ghosts and regrets and painful memories, something started to heal. Not all at once, not easily. But real healing never was. Shadow's breathing changed at 4:30. Michael was awake instantly. Years of light sleeping, of listening for threats that never stopped coming. He moved to the dog's side. Shadow's eyes were open, glassy, unfocused. "Hey, buddy, you with me?" No response. Michael checked his pulse. Too fast. His skin felt hot under the fur. "Daniel, wake up!" The cop jerked awake. "What's wrong?" "Fever. Hand me that thermometer. Kitchen drawer." Daniel stumbled to the kitchen. Shadow started panting, his tongue lolling. "Come on, soldier, stay with me." Michael held him steady while Daniel inserted the thermometer. 104. "That's bad," Daniel said. "That's emergency." Michael was already reaching for his phone. "Get him in the truck, now." They lifted Shadow together. The dog whimpered but didn't fight. Too weak. Too far gone. The drive to Dr. Morrison's clinic took 12 minutes that felt like 12 hours. Daniel held Shadow in the back seat, his phone flashlight checking the dog's breathing every 30 seconds. "Still with us," he kept saying. "Still breathing. Come on, Shadow, come on." Michael pushed the truck to 80 on empty back roads. His jaw clenched so tight it ached. Not again, not this time. The clinic was dark. Michael laid on the horn. Lights flickered on. Dr. Morrison appeared at the door in pajamas and a robe, his hair wild. "What the hell?" "Reaction to the meds. Fever. Disorientation." The vet was moving before Michael finished. "Get him inside. Exam room 2. They laid Shadow on the table. The German Shepherd's eyes had rolled back. His breathing was shallow. Dr. Morrison worked fast. IV line, blood draw, injection of something Michael didn't recognize. "Talk to me, Doc," Michael said. "Allergic reaction. Bad one. Should have caught it in the screening, but his system was already so compromised." He grabbed another vial. "This'll counteract it, but he needs to stabilize in the next 10 minutes or we're looking at organ failure." Daniel's face went white. "He can't die. He can't. He's not gonna die." Michael's voice was steel. "Right, Doc." Dr. Morrison didn't answer, just kept working. Shadow convulsed once, hard, his legs kicked out. "Hold him!" the vet shouted. Michael and Daniel pinned him down. Shadow's body went rigid, every muscle locked. "Come on, boy," Daniel whispered. "Come on. You've survived worse. You've survived bullets. You can survive this." The convulsion lasted 15 seconds. Felt like 15 years. Then Shadow went limp. Too limp. "Doc." Michael's voice cracked. Dr. Morrison had a stethoscope pressed to Shadow's chest. His face was unreadable. 10 seconds of silence. 20. 30. "Got a heartbeat," the vet said finally. "Faint but steady. Fever's dropping." The relief hit like a physical blow. Michael had to grip the table to stay upright. Daniel wasn't that lucky. He slid down the wall, put his face in his hands and sobbed. "He's gonna make it," Dr. Morrison said. "But we're switching medications. And he's staying here for the next 48 hours under observation." "I'll stay with him," Michael said. "Mr. Hale, that's not necessary." "I'm staying." The vet looked at Daniel, still on the floor. Then back at Michael. "All right. But you need sleep. Real sleep. There's a cot in the back. I'll watch him for the next few hours." "I don't need—" "That wasn't a request." Dr. Morrison's voice was gentle but firm. "Shadow's stable. You're not. Take the win and get some rest." Michael wanted to argue, but his hands were shaking. His vision was blurring. He was crashing, hard. "Okay," he said finally. "But if anything changes, you'll be the first to know." Daniel had pulled himself together. "I should call work. Tell them I'm taking a personal day." "Tell them you're taking a week," Michael said. "Michael? He's gonna need round-the-clock care when he comes home. I can't do it alone anymore. Not after tonight." Daniel nodded. Okay, yeah. I'll figure it out." They moved to the back room. 2 cots, a coffee maker, fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry wasps. Michael collapsed onto one cot. Daniel took the other. "I thought we lost him," Daniel said to the ceiling. "We didn't. But we almost did. Because of me. Because I signed those papers, because I walked away." Hayes shut up. Daniel went quiet. "You can't carry every bad thing that happens," Michael said. "Trust me, I've tried. It'll kill you faster than any bullet." "Then what do I do?" "You show up tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. You be better than you were." And if that's not enough, then you be better than that too. They lay in silence. Shadow's heartbeat monitor beeped rhythmically from the other room. Why'd you really buy him? Daniel asked. At the auction. You could have walked away, could have let someone else deal with it. Michael stared at the water-stained ceiling tiles. You ever have something haunt you so bad you can't sleep, can't eat, can't function? Yeah. Hunter haunts me, every night. I see him going down, hear him whining, feel him die. Michael's voice went flat. When I saw Shadow standing there unwanted broken, I saw a chance to save the dog I couldn't save before. That's not fair to Shadow. He's not a replacement. I know that. Do you? Because it sounds like you're trying to fix your past through him. Michael sat up, anger flashing. You got a psychology degree I don't know about. No, but I've got 3 months of therapy trying to deal with my guilt over leaving him. Daniel sat up too. My therapist said something that stuck. She said, you can't heal someone else's wounds by reopening your own. Your therapist sounds expensive. She is, and she's right. Daniel's voice softened. Shadow deserves someone who sees him for who he is, not who he reminds them of. The words hit harder than Michael wanted to admit, because Daniel was right. Michael had been treating Shadow like a second chance at saving Hunter, had been pouring his grief into a dog who needed something else entirely. So what do I do? Michael asked quietly. You let him be Shadow, not Hunter, not your redemption, just Shadow. Michael lay back down. That's harder than it sounds. Yeah, it really is. They fell asleep to the sound of the heartbeat monitor, a rhythm that said, still here, still fighting, still alive. 3 hours later, Dr. Morrison woke them with coffee and news. He's awake, asking for you. They moved quickly. Shadow lay on a thick pad, an IV in his leg, but his eyes were clear, alert. When he saw them, his tail thumped against the pad. Hey, buddy, Michael said. You scared us. Shadow's tail moved faster. Daniel crouched down, careful not to jostle the IV. Don't ever do that again, you hear me? Shadow licked his hand. I'm changing his pain management protocol, Dr. Morrison said. No more heavy-duty meds. We'll use a combination of low-dose anti-inflammatories and physical therapy instead. Will that be enough? Michael asked. It'll have to be. His system can't handle anything stronger. So he'll be in pain. Some? Yes. But manageable. The vet scratched Shadow's ears. He's tough. He'll adapt. Daniel's phone rang. He stepped outside to answer. Michael stayed with Shadow, one hand resting on the dog's side. Sorry, buddy. Tried to make it better. Made it worse instead. Shadow just looked at him with those dark, trusting eyes, like he understood, like he forgave, which somehow made it worse. Daniel came back in his face tight. That was my captain. And there's a reporter nosing around, asking about Shadow, about the auction, about you. I don't talk to reporters. She's persistent. Says she's doing a story on retired canines, how the system fails them. Good for her, still not talking. Michael, this could help. Could bring attention to what happened. Or it could turn Shadow into a spectacle. Michael's voice was hard. Make him perform his trauma for the camera so people can feel good about themselves for 5 minutes before they move on to the next sad story. Daniel opened his mouth, closed it. Yeah, you're right. Tell your captain no comment. Tell the reporter the same. Shadow's not a story. He's just a dog trying to heal. Understood. Dr. Morrison cleared his throat. Gentleman, Shadow needs rest. You should both go home, shower, eat actual food. I'll call if anything changes. I'm staying, Michael said. Mr. Hale. I'm staying. The vet looked at Daniel for help. Don't look at me. He's more stubborn than Shadow. Dr. Morrison sighed. Fine. But you eat something. There's a diner 2 blocks down. Officer Hayes, take him. I'll watch the dog. I don't need... You're shaking? You're pale. You look like death. The vet crossed his arms. Go. Eat. 20 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Michael wanted to refuse, but his vision was swimming. His hands were trembling. He hadn't eaten since yesterday's soup. Fine, 20 minutes. The diner was empty, except for a waitress reading a magazine. She looked up when they entered. Coffee. Please, they said in unison. They took a booth by the window, ordered eggs and toast, sat in exhausted silence while the waitress brought steaming mugs. Daniel wrapped his hands around his cup. How long can you keep this up? As long as it takes. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. Michael, you can't sustain this. Running on no sleep, no food, pure adrenaline. I sustained it in Afghanistan for 18 months. I can sustain it now. That was different. You were younger. You had a team. I had a mission. Michael met his eyes. Still do. The food came. They ate mechanically. Fuel, not enjoyment. Halfway through, Daniel spoke again. My wife wants to meet you. Michael's fork paused. Why? Because I told her what you did. Taking Shadow. Staying with him. Helping me fix my mistakes. Daniel stirred his coffee. She said anyone who'd do that for a dog deserves a proper thank you. I don't need thanks. How about backup? That got Michael's attention. What? Sarah's a vet tech. She's worked with trauma cases before. Dogs mostly, but some military working animals too. Daniel leaned forward. She could help. With Shadow's therapy, his medications, give you a break when you need it. Michael wanted to say no, wanted to keep his walls up, his world small and controllable. But Shadow needed more than Michael could give alone, and pride had no place in healing. She knows what she's doing, Michael asked. She's the best. And she won't try to make this into some heartwarming story, won't post about it on Facebook or whatever. She hates social media more than you do. Michael considered. Okay, she can help, but on my terms. My cabin. My rules. Deal. They finished eating. Paid. Walked back to the clinic. Shadow was sleeping peacefully when they returned. Dr. Morrison sat beside him reading a veterinary journal. 22 minutes, the vet said without looking up. Close enough. How is he? Michael asked. Stable. Vitals are good. I'll keep him here today and tonight, but he should be ready to go home tomorrow morning. I'll stay. No, you won't. Doctor, Morrison set down his journal. Mr. Hale, I appreciate your dedication, but if you don't rest, real rest in a real bed, you'll be no good to him when he needs you most. But, doctor's orders, and unlike your dog, you don't get a say. He stood, walked to his desk, and pulled out a bottle. Sleeping pills. Take one tonight. Sleep 8 hours. Come back tomorrow at 9. Michael stared at the bottle like it was a grenade. I don't do pills. Pretend they're vitamins. I don't care. But you need sleep before your body makes the decision for you. Daniel touched Michael's arm. He's right. Shadow needs you functional. Not running on fumes. Every instinct screamed at Michael to stay. To keep watch. To never let his guard down. But he looked at Shadow sleeping peacefully, breathing steadily, and realized the dog was safe. Safer than Michael was right now. Okay, he said finally. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. 9 a.m., Dr. Morrison confirmed. They left together. The morning sun was brutal after the dim clinic. Michael's truck sat alone in the parking lot. Need a ride? Daniel asked. I'm good. Michael. Hayes. I said I'm good. But when he reached his truck, his hands shook so badly he dropped the keys twice. Daniel picked them up. Give me the address. I'll drive. I don't need. Address. Now. Michael was too tired to argue. He gave Daniel the address and climbed into the passenger seat. The drive passed in a blur. Trees, road, sky, nothing felt real. When they reached the cabin, Daniel helped him inside. "Where's your bedroom?" Michael pointed vaguely. Daniel steered him down the hall and sat him on the bed. "Take the pill." "Don't need it." "Michael." "I said I don't need it." Daniel crouched down so they were eye level. "Listen to me. Shadow almost died tonight. You almost lost him. And you know why you're still standing. Because you've spent 3 years not dealing with Hunter's death. You've pushed it down, locked it up, pretended it didn't break you. Hayes, but it did break you. And now Shadow's breaking you open again. And if you don't rest, if you don't let yourself feel it, you're gonna shatter completely. And then what good are you to him?" The words hung in the air. Michael wanted to argue, wanted to push back, but he had nothing left. He took the pill, swallowed it dry. "Lie down," Daniel said. Michael did. "I'll lock up. Call you later to check in." "My phone." "I'll text. You don't have to answer. Just rest." The door clicked shut. Michael lay in the quiet, his body finally beginning to relax. The pill was working faster than he expected. Or maybe he was just that exhausted. His last thought before sleep took him was of Shadow's heartbeat on the monitor. That steady rhythm. Still here. Still fighting. Still alive. And maybe that was enough. For now. He woke to his phone ringing. The room was dark. His head felt thick, foggy. "Yeah. It's Morrison. Shadow's asking for you." Michael sat up too fast. The room spun. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. He's fine. Just anxious. Won't eat. Won't settle. Keeps looking at the door." "I'm on my way." "Mr. Hale, you don't have to." But Michael was already moving. He splashed water on his face, grabbed his keys, and was out the door in under 2 minutes. The clinic was quiet when he arrived. Dr. Morrison met him at the door. "He's in the recovery room." Shadow was standing barely his front paws on the edge of his kennel. When he saw Michael, he barked once. Sharp, desperate, relief. "Hey, buddy." Michael opened the kennel. "I'm here. I'm right here." Shadow pressed against him, whining softly. His whole body trembled. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have left." "You needed rest," Dr. Morrison said. "He needed me more." The vet didn't argue, just brought a chair. "Stay as long as you want." Michael sat. Shadow settled next to him, head on his lap. They stayed that way for hours. Michael's hand moving slowly through Shadow's fur. The dog finally relaxing. At some point, Daniel arrived with coffee and food. "Thought you might need this." "How'd you know I was here?" "Because I'd be here too." Daniel handed over the coffee. "How is he?" "Better now." They sat together in the quiet, Shadow between them, still healing, still broken in places, but alive, and surrounded by people who refused to give up on him. "My wife wants to come by tomorrow," Daniel said. "When we bring him home, help us get set up." "Okay." "And my captain called. Wants to do a commendation ceremony for Shadow. Recognize his service." "No." "Michael." I said no. Shadow doesn't need a ceremony. Doesn't need his trauma paraded around for good PR. Michael's voice was firm. He needs quiet, needs peace, needs people who care more about his healing than their photo ops. Daniel nodded slowly. "I'll tell them no." "Good." Shadow sighed deeply. Content. "He looks better," Daniel said. "He's getting there." "So are you." Michael didn't respond. Because he wasn't sure it was true. But maybe that was okay. Maybe healing wasn't about being sure. Maybe it was just about showing up, day after day, hour after hour, for the ones who needed you most, even when you were broken too, especially then. The sun was barely up when they brought Shadow home. Dr. Morrison had discharged him with 3 pages of instructions and a warning. Any sign of distress, you call me immediately. I don't care if it's 3 in the morning. Understood, Michael said. Shadow limped between them to the truck. His movements were stiff but steady. When Daniel opened the door, the dog hesitated. It's okay, boy, Daniel said. We're going home. But Shadow wasn't looking at the truck. He was looking at Daniel's cruiser parked beside it, his ears flattened, his body tensed. He remembers, Michael said quietly. Remembers what? The last time he saw that car, when you took him to the shelter. Daniel's face crumbled. Shadow eye. But the dog had already turned away, limping toward Michael's truck instead. The rejection was clear, brutal, deserved. Give him time, Michael said. He'll come around. Will he? I don't know, but pushing won't help. They drove to the cabin in silence. Shadow sat in the back seat, his head resting against the window, watching the world pass by like he was memorizing it, like he was afraid it might disappear. When they pulled up to the cabin, another car was already there, a blue sedan. A woman stood on the porch with a box in her arms. That's Sarah, Daniel said. She was younger than Michael expected. Early 40s maybe, with kind eyes and capable hands. She smiled when they got out. You must be Michael. Ma'am? Sarah Hayes. And before you get all stiff and formal, I brought food, real food. The kind that doesn't come from a can. She held up the box. Figured you boys could use it. Despite himself, Michael almost smiled. Thank you. Shadow limped up the porch steps slowly. Sarah set down the box and crouched to his level. Hey there, brave boy. I've heard so much about you. Shadow sniffed her hand cautiously. Then his tail wagged once. Can I pet you? Another wag. She touched him gently, carefully, avoiding his injured leg. You're a handsome guy, aren't you? Yes, you are. Shadow leaned into her touch. Something in his body relaxed. She's good with him, Michael said to Daniel. Told you. They moved inside. Sarah unpacked the box casserole's fresh bread fruit coffee that didn't taste like regret. This is too much, Michael said. No, it's exactly enough. She organized everything efficiently. Now, show me where you're keeping his medications. I want to see the schedule. Michael pulled out the papers. Sarah read them quickly, her professional mask slipping into place. Okay, this is manageable. But he'll need physical therapy twice daily. Hydrotherapy if possible. And someone needs to monitor him constantly for the first week. I can do that, Michael said. You'll burn out in 3 days. I've handled worse. Michael. Her voice was gentle but firm. Let us help. That's why we're here. Us. Daniel stepped forward. I took 2 weeks off. Captain wasn't happy, but he approved it. 2 weeks, Hayes, you can't. I can. I did. Sarah arranged her schedule to come by during the day when I can't be here. Daniel's jaw set. Shadow needs round-the-clock care. You can't do it alone, so stop trying. Michael wanted to argue, wanted to maintain control, keep his walls up, but he was exhausted, mentally, physically, spiritually. Okay, he said finally. Okay. Sarah smiled. Good. Now let's get this boy settled and start his first therapy session. The next hour was a crash course in canine rehabilitation. Sarah showed them exercises, gentle stretches, controlled movements, patience. Shadow tolerated it better than Michael expected. Whined sometimes when it hurt, but never snapped, never quit. He's a fighter, Sarah said. You can see it in his eyes. He's not done yet. No, Michael agreed. He's not. By noon, Shadow was exhausted. He collapsed on his blanket and fell asleep immediately. Sarah made lunch. They ate at the small kitchen table, the first real meal Michael had had at home in years. This is good, he said. It's just chicken and rice. Still good. They ate in comfortable silence. Then Sarah spoke. Daniel told me about Hunter. Michael's fork paused. Did he? I'm sorry. Losing a partner like that. There's no words for it. No, there's not. But Michael... She waited until he looked at her. Shadow's not Hunter, and you're not back in Afghanistan. This is a second chance, not a redo. The same thing Daniel had said. But somehow, hearing it from her, from someone who understood animals who'd worked with trauma, it hit different. I know, Michael said quietly. Do you? Because from what Daniel says, you've been running yourself into the ground, trying to save Shadow, the way you couldn't save Hunter. That's not... It is, and it's understandable. But it's not fair to Shadow, or to you. Sarah's voice was kind. Healing isn't about making up for the past. It's about showing up for the present. Michael set down his fork. How do I do that? You're already doing it. You showed up at that auction. Showed up at the vet. Showed up every single time Shadow needed you. She touched his hand briefly. Now you just need to show up for yourself too. Before Michael could respond, Shadow whimpered in his sleep. His legs twitched. His breathing quickened. They were at his side instantly. Nightmare? Sarah said softly. From the trauma. It's common. Shadow's whimpers grew louder. His paws scratched at nothing. Should we wake him? Daniel asked. Not yet, unless it gets worse. Shadow yelped. His eyes flew open wild and unfocused. Shadow, hey? Michael's voice was calm. You're safe. You're home. But the dog scrambled to his feet, his injured leg buckling. He backed into a corner, ears flat, teeth bared. Give him space, Sarah said. He's not here. He's back in the warehouse. Shadow growled, low, dangerous, the sound of a dog who'd been cornered before. Daniel started to move forward. Sarah grabbed his arm. Don't. He'll bite. He doesn't know it's you right now. They stood frozen, while Shadow panted in the corner, his eyes seeing something that wasn't there. Michael slowly lowered himself to the floor, cross-legged, hands visible, non-threatening. Shadow, it's me. It's Michael. The growling continued. I'm not gonna hurt you. Nobody's gonna hurt you. You're safe. Shadow's ears flicked forward slightly. That's it. Listen to my voice. Follow it back. Michael kept talking, soft, steady, the same tone he'd used in Afghanistan when he'd talked soldiers down from panic attacks. Slowly, so slowly, Shadow's breathing evened. His growl faded. His eyes began to clear. There you go. Come back. Come back to us. Shadow took one hesitant step forward, then another. When he reached Michael, he collapsed against him, shaking. I got you, Michael whispered. I got you, buddy. You're safe. Sarah exhaled shakily. That was good, really good. How often will this happen? Daniel asked. Hard to say. Could be daily, could be weekly. PTSD in dogs is unpredictable. She crouched beside them. But he trusts you. That's huge. Most dogs won't come back that fast. Michael stroked Shadow's fur. The dog's shaking was subsiding, his breathing normalizing. What triggered it? Daniel asked. Could be anything. A sound, a smell, a memory. Sarah stood. We need to keep his environment calm. No loud noises, no sudden movements. And someone always needs to be here when he wakes up. I can do that, Michael said. We can do that, Daniel corrected. Together. Over the next few days, they fell into a rhythm. Sarah came by every morning with food and therapy instructions. Daniel stayed through the afternoons, helping with exercises and medications. Michael took the nights, keeping watch while Shadow slept. It was exhausting. It was necessary. And slowly it was working. Shadow's limp grew less pronounced. His appetite returned. The nightmares came less frequently. And something else changed too. Shadow started seeking out Daniel again. It was small at first. A glance. A tail wag when Daniel entered the room. Then one afternoon, while they were doing therapy exercises, Shadow limped over to Daniel and pressed his head against his knee. Daniel froze. Michael. Don't move. Let him come to you. Shadow stayed there for a long moment. Then he licked Daniel's hand once and moved away. But something had shifted. Some wall had cracked. He's forgiving you, Sarah said softly. I don't deserve it, Daniel whispered. Maybe not, but he's giving it anyway. That's what dogs do. She smiled. They forgive us when we don't forgive ourselves. That night, after Sarah and Daniel left, Michael sat on the porch with Shadow beside him. The stars were out, clear, cold, beautiful. You're doing good, buddy, real good. Shadow's tail thumped against the wooden boards. I know I haven't said this, but thank you. For trusting me. For letting me help. Michael's voice roughened. I didn't think I had anything left to give. But you showed me I was wrong. Shadow shifted closer, resting his head on Michael's lap. They sat like that for an hour. Two broken soldiers finding peace in the quiet. Then Michael's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. But something made him. Yeah. Mr. Hale. This is Captain Richards from the police department. Daniel Hayes's supervisor. Michael's guard went up immediately. What do you want? I want to apologize for what happened to Shadow, for how we handled his retirement, for... The captain paused. For failing him. Michael said nothing. I also want to offer something. We'd like to recognize Shadow's service, officially, with a commendation ceremony. I said no to that. I know, but hear me out. This isn't about PR. This is about making sure every canine that comes after Shadow gets better treatment, better care, better support when they retire. That got Michael's attention. You're changing the policy. We're implementing new protocols, medical care for life, mandatory therapy, foster programs, and it's because of what happened to Shadow, because people saw how we failed him. People. That reporter you wouldn't talk to. She ran the story anyway, used public records, interviews with other canine handlers. It went viral. Now we've got the mayor breathing down our necks, the press demanding answers, and a petition with 15,000 signatures. Michael felt something loosen in his chest. Good. So let us honor him. Let us show the department, show the whole city that we're doing better. That Shadow's sacrifice meant something. It meant something regardless of your ceremony. You're right. But this could mean something for other dogs too. Michael looked down at Shadow. The dog was watching him with those intelligent eyes. I need to think about it. Take your time. But Mr. Hale, thank you. For what you did. For seeing him when nobody else would. The captain hung up. Michael sat with the phone in his hand processing. Shadow nudged him gently. Yeah, I know, it's a lot. The next morning, he told Daniel and Sarah about the call. You should do it, Sarah said immediately. I don't want Shadow turned into a spectacle. It's not about spectacle, it's about accountability. She leaned forward. Those policy changes, they'll save lives. Not just dogs, handlers too, if Shadow's story can do that. She's right, Daniel said quietly. I've talked to guys on the force. Other canine handlers. They're scared. Scared that if their dogs get hurt, they'll end up like Shadow. But now there's real change happening. Because people care. Michael was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Shadow. What do you think, buddy? Want to go back, face the place that threw you away? Shadow's ears perked forward. His tail wagged once. That's not a yes, Michael said. But it wasn't a no either. 3 days later, they stood outside the police department. News vans lined the street. Officers in dress uniforms gathered on the steps. Michael's hands were sweating. We can still leave. No, Daniel said. We're doing this. Sarah adjusted Shadow's new collar, black leather with a silver nameplate. He looks handsome. Shadow seemed calm, alert, like he understood something important was happening. Captain Richards met them at the door. Thank you for coming. Don't thank me yet, Michael said. They walked inside. The main hall was packed. Officers, civilians, press, all watching. Shadow limped between Michael and Daniel, his head high, his gait uneven but proud. Someone started clapping. Then another person. Then the entire room erupted. Shadow's ears went back. He pressed against Michael's leg. "Easy," Michael murmured. "Just noise. Can't hurt you." The captain led them to a podium, a makeshift stage. Shadow balked at the steps. "I can't get him up there," Michael said. "Then we bring the ceremony down here," the captain said without hesitation. He stepped down, microphone in hand. The crowd quieted. 3 months ago, we failed this dog. Canine Shadow served this department with honor and distinction for 7 years. He saved Officer Hayes' life, stopped countless threats, protected this community without question or hesitation. Shadow's ears flicked toward Daniel at the sound of his name. And when he was injured in the line of duty, we threw him away. We hid behind policy and procedure instead of doing what was right. The captain's voice hardened. That ends today. He pulled out a document. I'm announcing the Shadow Protocol, a new set of guidelines that ensures every canine who serves this department will receive lifetime medical care, psychological support, and guaranteed placement upon retirement. The crowd applauded. Michael felt his throat tighten. Furthermore, we're establishing a fund in Shadow's name to support other retired police dogs across the state. The captain turned to Shadow. And to this brave dog, we award the Medal of Valor for courage above and beyond the call of duty. He held out a medal. Shadow sniffed it cautiously. The room laughed. Not cruelly, warmly. Officer Hayes, would you do the honors? Daniel stepped forward. His hands shook as he fastened the medal to Shadow's collar. I'm sorry, he whispered, for everything, but I'm here now, and I'm not leaving again. Shadow licked his face. The crowd went wild. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions, but Michael heard none of it. Because he was watching Shadow. Watching the way the dog stood a little taller. The way his tail wagged despite the chaos. Like he finally understood what they'd been trying to tell him all along. You matter. You're valued. You're home. After the ceremony, they escaped to the parking lot. Sarah had tears in her eyes. That was beautiful. That was exhausting, Michael said, but he was smiling. Daniel crouched beside Shadow. You did good, partner. Real good. Shadow barked once. Sharp, happy. It was the first time any of them had heard him bark with joy. Let's go home, Michael said. They drove back to the cabin in comfortable silence. Shadow slept in the back seat, his metal glinting in the sunlight. When they arrived, something was different. A truck Michael didn't recognize sat in the driveway. An older man stood on the porch. Weathered face, military bearing. Familiar in a way that made Michael's chest ache. Can I help you? Michael called out. The man turned, and Michael's breath caught. Colonel Patterson, his commanding officer from Afghanistan. Hail, been looking for you. Michael's walls slammed up. I don't want any trouble. Not here to cause any. Here to say thank you. For what? The colonel gestured to Shadow. For doing what I couldn't. For saving the dog when I couldn't save Hunter. Michael went still. You knew about Hunter. I was their son. I saw what happened. I saw what it did to you. The colonel's voice roughened. And I've regretted every day that I couldn't do more. Couldn't get you help. Couldn't save that dog. Michael felt something breaking open inside his chest. It wasn't your fault. Wasn't yours either. But we've both been carrying it. The colonel moved closer. When I saw the news story about Shadow about what you did, I knew I had to find you. Had to tell you that you've done something incredible here. I just bought a dog at an auction. No. You gave a broken soldier a second chance. You showed up when nobody else would. You fought for him. The colonel's eyes shone. That's what Hunter would have wanted. What he deserved. The words hit like a flood. Michael had to grip the porch railing to stay upright. Daniel and Sarah hung back, giving them space. "I miss him," Michael said quietly. "Every day. I hear him in my sleep. See him when I close my eyes." "I know. And you always will. That's the cost of loving something." The colonel touched his shoulder. "But look what that love created. Look at Shadow. Look at those policy changes. Look at all the dogs that'll be saved because you couldn't save one." Michael looked at Shadow. The dog had woken up and was watching them with those intelligent eyes. "He's not Hunter," Michael said. "No, he's Shadow, and he's lucky to have you." The colonel stayed for coffee, told stories about Hunter, about Afghanistan, about the good days before everything went wrong. It hurt. God, it hurt. But it also healed something Michael hadn't realized was still bleeding. When the colonel left, he shook Michael's hand. "You ever need anything, you call me. Understand?" "Yes, sir." "And Hale, stop punishing yourself. You've paid enough." Michael nodded, couldn't speak. After the colonel drove away, Michael sat on the porch steps. Shadow limped over and settled beside him. "You know what?" Michael said. "I think he's right. I think we've both paid enough." Shadow's tail thumped agreement. Daniel and Sarah joined them. They sat together as the sun set, four souls who'd found each other when they needed it most. "What happens now?" Daniel asked. "Now?" Michael scratched Shadow's ears. "Now we just live. We do the therapy. We take the walks. We have the good days and survive the bad ones. That's it. That's everything." Sarah smiled. "Sounds perfect." The weeks that followed were hard. Shadow had setbacks. Days where the pain was too much. Nights where the nightmares came back strong. But he also had victories. The first time he ran, really ran without limping. The day he played with the tennis ball Daniel brought. The morning he woke up and didn't immediately search for threats. Slowly, painfully, beautifully, he healed. And so did Michael. He started sleeping through the night, started eating regular meals, started answering his phone when people called. He even started talking to other veterans about their service dogs, helping them navigate the system, showing them what was possible when you refused to give up. Daniel visited 3 times a week like clockwork, sometimes with Sarah. Sometimes with his kids, 2 boys who treated Shadow like a hero and never made him feel broken. The cabin that had been a prison became a home, and the dog that nobody wanted became the dog that changed everything. 6 months after the auction on a clear spring morning, Michael took Shadow for a walk through the woods. No leash, no commands, just 2 soldiers walking side by side. Shadow moved freely now, still a slight limp, still some bad days, but whole in the ways that mattered. They reached a clearing. Michael sat on a fallen log. Shadow sat beside him. "You know what I realized?" Michael said. "You didn't need me to save you. You saved yourself. You survived the bullet, survived the abandonment, survived the auction. I just gave you a place to do it." Shadow looked at him like he understood every word. "But you did save me. Gave me a reason to get up, a reason to care, a reason to stop running from what hurt." Shadow leaned against him, solid, warm, real. "Thank you," Michael whispered, "for choosing me, for trusting me, for showing me that broken doesn't mean finished." They sat in the clearing until the sun was high. Then they walked home together, past the trees, past the ghosts, past the pain that would always be there but didn't have to define them. Because healing wasn't about forgetting, wasn't about being perfect, wasn't about erasing the scars. It was about learning to carry them with grace, about finding people who'd walk beside you when the weight got too heavy, about showing up for each other, especially when it hurt. Shadow taught Michael that. Taught him that loyalty wasn't about never falling. It was about always getting back up. And as they reached the cabin, as Daniel's truck pulled into the driveway for his weekly visit, as Sarah waved from the porch with coffee, and that bright smile, Michael understood something profound. Nobody had bid on the injured police dog at that auction. But in the end, Shadow had won anyway. Because the quiet stranger who raised his hand didn't just buy a dog. He found a family, found a purpose, found proof that second chances aren't given, they're fought for, earned, and built one painful step at a time. And in that small cabin in the woods surrounded by people who refused to give up, Shadow finally learned what he'd always deserved to know. He was home. He was loved. He was enough. And he always had been.